Hello all. Thank you for joining this session. Hope you are enjoying Explore the Day One. So this is literally a lighter topic as compared to whatever you have seen here, right? So, but then what we are going to go through is basically sustainability, how it helps, right? How it helps and how it can be done in the IT department. So just to give a quick intro of me, myself, I'm a principal technical adoption manager, part of the customer success team within VMware. I'm also part of the global field under Office of CTO, so where I handle a lot of sustainability projects as well. I also work closely with the Aria Operations team as well, and had been part of the community, had been part of the vExpert community for some time, and had been doing sessions all around, specifically on Aria Ops and then sustainability in the last few years. So today's agenda, what I will cover mainly is how sustainability. We hear a lot of things about sustainability, buzzwords and all. How it is relevant for IT and how it is valid for IT, and also then I will come into how, as a VMware admin, you can utilize VMware Aria Ops and how to do a carbon reporting or how to track the sustainability goals and all of those things, right? So let's start with the challenge, right? Like, you hear a lot of things about like global warming, Paris Accord, how to climate control, all of those things, and then which all lead into basically the decarbonization strategies and net zero. These are the key buzzwords what you get to hear, right? From all the industries, all across the industries, where you see the every event, everything. But then, what can IT industry do, right? How can IT industry contribute to that? And over and above that, as an IT admin, how can we contribute? For an IT admin, what are the things which we can work on or specifically run on to help with these IT or sustainability goals? Now, before going into the actual thing, right, we need to look at how it is relevant for IT industry. Now, just looking at this very simple example, right, a small data center which throws like about 10 megawatts of power in this example, you really need to generate 43 megawatts somewhere in a power plant because of the transmission losses, generation losses, and then the cooling and all of those things. So we are talking about like a huge percentage of losses, right? So 10 megawatts to 43, you are losing like 33 megawatts of power, right? And that is equivalent to powering a city of like 30,000 people, right? So this is important. So now this is what is happening in IT industry. Now this is one data center, right? And one data center, and we talk about the global environment where you have large number of data centers, hyperscalers. Each of those public cloud, what you are talking about, is a data center, right? So, and the power going into that. So the industry studies say that about the total electricity generated globally, of those 2.7% is utilized wholly for the IT industry. Of course, you can say it's small, but then that's where we can control as well, right? And it's the carbon emission is almost more than what is coming from the airline industry. So that's where the huge importance comes in, and where we can do some actions on that, right? So what is VMware doing in this? Whatever VMware doing, right? All the products have sustainability embedded into that. You can just think about ESX. ESX drives consolidation. Consolidation means lesser power, right? Lesser power means lesser carbon emission. So whatever we had been doing had sustainability embedded into that, but then we have not been really showcasing that earlier. That's what we showing today in this, right? And we have a broader vision, not just on sustainability, but overall, like sustainability, equity, and trust. That's what we call our ESG vision or 2030 agenda, where we have certain like 30 goals of those 10 R's of sustainability to be achieved by 2030, right? And this is a very common scenario where you see all the customers are in one of these journeys, where as part of the transition, right, from basic virtualization onto the net zero clouds. Each of those, we call it as that's a cloud sustainability maturity model, where you can go in, step in into one of the other things that are moving along with that, right? Now, we have three sustainability goals as part of 2030 agenda. And first is the carbon transparency. That's what we are going to see with this today now, right? Carbon transparency is helping you to show identify the metrics identify the metrics within the carbon metrics or sustainability within your data center. And the other two are basically on the zero carbon clouds and then the workload efficiency. Today we are going to talk about carbon transparency. Carbon transparency with VMware Aria Operations, right? Now, I'm not sure everybody knows about VMware Aria Operations. That's our cloud management monitoring tool, which helps in like helping it to see run the operations manually, seamlessly across multi-cloud and hybrid cloud and all. So it runs on 5 pillars. Like, and fifth pillar, as you can see, is sustainability, right? Now, when you think about sustainable data center operation, we have identified it's mainly like 3 dimensions. The first is green supply. Green supply is not just about green power, but also it's about an infrastructure that is optimized. For example, the business asks the IT admins about, I need a VM. When we provision the VM, there has to be running from a greener infrastructure, which is not just about power, but also about like an efficient without any wastage in the environment and all. And the second dimension is clean demand. Make sure that you don't have the resources wasted in your data center by right sizing the VMs, right? Like, you should not be running a lot of oversized VM, all of those things. So making sure that is not happening. That is the clean demand. And then the third dimension is run lean. This is an example for this is basically in an organization where when the procurement team buys hardware, they always keep a buffer because they don't want to run out of capacity in the peak time, right? So that buffer is there. And then when you go to the VM owners, application owners, they also keep their own buffer for the same thing. So the buffer gets stacked up, and this is again a wastage. So what we are trying to do is help you with is trying to identify this wastage or this buffer and then try to minimize it without impacting the quality of operations, right? So now, if you look at the capabilities or features on the right side, right size VM, idle VM, all of these things had been there in Aria operations since the beginning. But then we had never been translating that back into sustainability goals or carbon goals or anything like that, right? So that's what we did in the first release of the sustainability dashboard or metrics within Aria operations, where it's basically like 3 themes we will look at. First is, how much carbon did you save by virtualizing? Of course, you can say that that's an old story, but then still, at the time where we have the carbon reporting in place, this is an important thing. So we can just showcase that. Again, it's theory, but then when carbon reporting is needed, this is an important thing. The second thing is, how can you further identify or optimize your carbon footprint? Aria operations, the easiest thing to identify is idle VM, oversized VMs and all. So in this dashboard, we can literally get to see what are the idle VM and then take an action on that. And then the third theme was, where do you want to provision your next VM or workload to a greenest cluster? Where can I find that, right? So these are the 3 things. So first thing I mentioned, like carbon efficiency with virtualization, identify how much did you save by virtualizing. Just for the reporting purpose, it's mostly used now, but still for the organizational goal, this is an important thing. So it looks at how many VMs are in your environment and then does an assumption of, if you're running 1000 VMs, if not virtualized, you would have been running 1000 physical servers in the data center. That's an assumption we take, and we take the values, average values, and then accordingly you say how much did you save. So the second one is the idle VM, how to optimize further, right? So each of those heat map widgets, those boxes are a cluster. So you can set thresholds where if the power consumed by the idle VMs goes beyond a particular threshold, change the color in there, right? So, and accordingly, you have 2 actions there. Either you can go into the cluster and then identify the idle VM, either shut down or delete or whatever, if possible. But if the business needs those, that is mostly the case, where those VMs are running either once in a quarter, once in a year or something, then you go into the net zero way, right? When for reporting, you can say number of trees to be planted to offset the damage done by that. So that's again the reporting part, right? But then it gives you the option for that. Now the third one is the interesting one, where Earlier, it used to be like when you want to provision a VM, earlier it used to be saying, I want to provision to a cluster which is based on the cost or based on the performance. So now the new thing is, I want to provision to the greenest cluster. How do you identify that, right? So that's where we give you the capability of seeing the top 10 clusters by power efficiency and top 10 clusters by power consumed, because power consumed cannot be used for the green calculation, just because larger clusters will have larger power consumption, right? Number of VMs. So we cannot stop that by saying that you don't provision VM. So that's where the power efficiency factor we utilize there, and accordingly give you the capability of seeing that as well. Now, the other aspect is basically like, now you have this sustainability goals, sustainability metrics, all of those things. Now, if the customer want to track where am I currently in my decarbonization journey, there are no universal standards now. There are no universal score where you can see where am I currently or how am I doing, right? So that's where we came out with this thing of tracking decarbonization. First, identify the current carbon footprint of your environment, and then help you to track your carbon emission or decarbonization goals in your data center. Like, how can you track that, right? So that is something which we came out with called Green Score. Green Score is the patented formula with which you use for 5 components within the data center. I'll come to that. And based on that, it tracks you what is your score currently, and you can keep tracking it over a period of time. And then also it gives you the actionable recommendation, because it's based on the 5 components in the data center. It gives you the score for each of those components. So that's where you can say, like, how can you further optimize, looking at each of those 5 components and then do the actionable recommendation. Now, we talked about those 3 dimensions, right? Clean demand, clean operation, green supply. We expanded it with more related features, wherein clean demand is, of course, the workload efficiency, which is the wastage in your environment, like idle VM, powered off VM, snapshots, all of those things which are identified by Aria Operations. We will calculate a score based on that. So it will be the percentage of the wastage in your environment with the total capacity. Now, this in the second dimension, lean operation, we had the resources utilization, which was basically reducing that buffer. We talked about that. We also added the virtualization ratio, because virtualization drives consolidation and thus power consumption, less power consumption, right? So we have to look at that also as a component. And in the green supply, we use the power source, which is one of the biggest components which drive the green operations, we can say. And then the last component is the hardware efficiency. That runs on the fact that the latest generation hardware are more energy efficient, based on the fact that it can do more consolidation, more VMs can run on it. Also, it consumes less power, or more energy efficient hardware it is. So these are the 5 components which we use to create that green score. Now, each of these components have different level of impact onto the green score, because power source, as you say, if you have a greener power source, power coming from the greener source, it will be more green, right? But still you have the other components. So that's where we have put weighted average for each of those components, wherein power source is the biggest one, like 37%, and then the next is workload efficiency, because there you have the capability of controlling that. You know your data center, and you have the full capability of controlling that. So that's where that has the bigger thing. And then the resource utilization, which is the buffer, and then the virtualization ratio, which are the inputs which you give, because we cannot currently get in the virtualization ratio from your environment, right? So that's where we get the inputs from you, and then based on that we calculate. Hardware efficiency, we have put like very least, just because the questions come in, right? So it is based on the fact that your hardware is latest, so that's where we give a bigger score to that. But then that will initiate another scope 3 emission, because you are pushing customers to buy new hardware every year. That would mean that the scope 3 emissions from the manufacturing, shipment, all of those things comes into picture. But again, we are looking at scope 2 only here, so that's where we have put in the least weightage to that. And accordingly, based on all these 5 things, we calculate the green score. you will get to see here, and it's a relative scoring. So this is where you get to see what is your score currently, and then compare within your data centers, and then also look at where you are going further forward, right? And also you can see the power consumption over a period of time on the entire environment, also the carbon footprint, and you can keep tracking it over a period of time, like weekly, monthly, yearly, etc. Now, and the 5 components, right? We talked about the 5 components. We give score for each of those 5 components based on which the green score is calculated. And advantage here is that you get to see the score for each of those components, and you can decide on where to work on with, right? For example, if you say the workload efficiency in so and so score, you know where to go in, right? We have the dashboards available for reclaiming resources, right size resources and all, wherein you can go in and improve those things so that that score gets improved, and then accordingly your green score also gets improved, right? And the green supply, you get to see the power source. If you can't, where you cannot change your, because there is only one power source, so you can actually put this to the higher score so that it doesn't impact your overall. So that's the thing. And then there are other capabilities wherein, like, the right sizing is one of the key capabilities, or where the key tools within the data center, where you can improve the efficiency of our data center, oversized VM, all of those things. We had been driving this just with earlier with saying that you can reduce the cost of your data center running cost, right? Now we can even utilize it with carbon emission, drive this as a carbon emissions driving initiative. So I have customers where people, they have different departments, and then each of those department we give a carbon tax based on what is the size of your VMs, right? Oversized VM, wastage in there. So overall, it actually looks at, for each department we give you, these are the carbon tax, and that's what you get to see here. And every quarter they review it and see. This goes in as a driver for the right sizing now, because right sizing is one of the biggest challenges every IT admin face, because no VM owner or application owner would like to cut down on the resources which had been allocated to them, right? So this is another driver which is being used now by several customers as a carbon emissions. Now, just summarizing on what I have told about, right? So IT can be a key contributor to the sustainability thing. And also Aria Operations can help you with sustainable data center operation, and also a green score. This is an important thing, right? Because there is no way, right, for any customer to see or track where they are currently, because there are no global standard sets. So that's why we started looking at this as a for every customer, because the data centers are different. Bigger data centers, smaller data centers, we cannot compare with just with power consumption. So that's where those 5 components we use, which is the right thing to compare for between data centers and data centers. That I will. So this is my thing. I'll be in the October booth as well, in the expo, in the VMware booth. I'll be there during Thursday, and also we have few sessions as well running on with that. I'm happy to connect and look at that. Thank you.